Okay. All right, let's get started. Here we are. I hope the lighting seems okay for you all. What I have planned for tonight is to start seated. We're going to do this whole kind of intro warm-up seated, and then we will make our way to hands and knees, table pose and such, and then eventually come to stand for a moment before we then lay back down. So if you need to make space, just continue to get yourself situated. And then of course you're in your own space, so do what you need. If you need to turn your camera off, get a drink of water, whatever you need to do. I'm going to have us start with both knees bent and off to one side. And so you're sitting kind of leaning more on one side of your pelvis, on one hip. Doesn't matter which side you start with, you just pick your spot. And so you can have your ankles stacked. I have my legs a little bit flared from each other. And we're going to start just with the outer hand leaning into the ground, and you can bend your elbow and do a few little pulses like that. So I'm up on my finger pads. You could choose to be full palm down. Maybe try both and see what feels best. And after a few rounds of this, then just see if you can hold still with a straighter arm and reach the opposite arm up and over. So from there, then it's going to come more from your side waist. So you might feel a little bit of movement in your hips. So now I'm moving my spine and my hips, taking these little pulses here. So this is lateral flexion for the spine, taking a side bend. My low back has been, an area in the winter time for sure, but lately that I'm needing to do a little more, of these sort of movements where I'm kind of working some stuff out. So that's why I'm not sure if any of you are feeling that, but it's something that's resonated for me. So anything here that feels like some little shifting around, getting sensitive to what you're feeling, you can try. And then if you want to also take a twist, you can come a little bit more upright and take both hands over to the outer leg. So I'm not going to go too far with it, but I'm just going to then hold my knee, ankle somewhere there where I can straighten out my arms and sit a little bit taller. If you want, you could keep going, maybe bend your elbows, take your outer arm further back to the ground and twist even more. But sometimes in the exploration, you realize where you need to stop and just be. And then take the inner arm, lead it up into the air, outer arm comes up to meet. Both hands might touch, and you can draw the hands down your center. Maybe press your thumbs lightly against your chest. Take a deep, full inhale and exhale. And to switch sides, I'm going to suggest leaning back and letting both feet and legs come forward. So then I'm going to pick my hips up and plant my seat directly in front so that I can then sway the legs side to side. So take your time. You can move in this way as slow as you'd like. When you feel like you've had enough of that and you're ready to do the other side, go ahead and shift around until you can stack your knees and ankles to the other side. And so I'm going to start again like before with my outer arm against the mat or the floor, and then bend the elbow and straighten. So taking these pulses. And then from here, I'm going to keep that arm straight and take the upper arm out and up into the air. You can decide where to stop, but then let the movement come more from your torso and your spine. So we'll spend the next 30 seconds or so just doing this. You get to figure out what feels right. And then we'll come up to a twist, so you can sit more upright. Take both hands to your outer leg somewhere, maybe straighten your arms. That could be where you stop. You could also take your back hand behind you to the floor and twist further. And then finally, take your outer arm and let it float up into the air. Next arm comes up and meets it. Maybe reach up a little higher and then bring the hands back down your center and take a deep breath. So we're going to then take the swaying of the legs again. So both feet forward. You can situate yourself as you need and begin to sway the knees. So sometimes it might feel good also to just let your knees drop and hold it to one side. You don't have to constantly be swaying. Okay, our next portion of this seated opening sequence, I'm going to turn to the side so you can see a little bit better, but we're going to take a figure 4 sequence. So you're going to lean back onto your hands. You might have to turn your fingertips to face out to the edges of your mat. Bend your elbows, have your feet further away from you so that you can stack your right ankle over your left thigh. So if I turn this way, you can see creates this figure 4. There's a space in between your legs. So once you've found that, if you're able, then you can bring your foot a little closer. So again, if you start with the feet further away from you, that might just be where you stay. If you have blocks or something, you could also lean back onto blocks and just hang out here. But if it feels like you would crave and want more of a stretch, you can keep moving the bottom foot closer and closer, and then straighten your arms so your torso comes closer as well. Give yourself some attentive moments within this before taking it any further. So another thing you could try here, if this is also feeling like a spot that you're curious about, you could lean back onto your elbows or onto your blocks and then do some sensation pulses through this position, moving your spine and your pelvis. You could rock a little bit, take circles here. And then maybe even drop the whole figure 4 setup over to the left. So if you have that right ankle across the left thigh, drop everything to the left so that your right foot touches the ground. And you could also then play around with coming up to your palms again, working from straight arms. Or maybe it felt better to be down on your elbows. Give yourself a moment. And then we're going to bring the whole setup back upright. Walk your hands closer. Again, if you would like to try this one, you might want to lift your hips up for a moment and drop back down. Maybe step the bottom foot further forward. Take your right arm and weave it through the figure 4. Hands meet at your left shin or knee. So then you're going to just straighten out by pulling the clasped hands to your left shin and lifting your chest. So that pressure of the hands to the shin and the lift of the chest perhaps isolates different regions. Final thing of this sequence, let your hands come out, straighten your left leg, and let your right foot step to the floor, just beyond that left leg. So we're coming to a seated twist. So now you can sense, hopefully, that outer right hip, and you're going to hug your right knee with your left elbow. To see how that feels, you might use the floor, pressing your right hand down into the floor. You might just kind of hold your leg. It's up to you if you would like to get further into the twist. Just use your breath to inform the shape. Okay, let's let go and just shake your legs out. And in between sides, you can take a butterfly pose, soles of the feet together, knees to the side, grab onto your shins, ankles, knees, somewhere where you can potentially take some circles and some movement. And give yourself a moment of stillness here as well. And then let's shift to the other side. Figure 4 sequence. So this time I won't talk as much. So feet are further away from you. Left ankle, you try to stack it over the right thigh so that your left knee kind of drapes out to the left. So when you look at your legs, there's that open triangle space. And like I said, you could just stay right here. You don't have to move the bottom foot any closer, but you can. And you could also, again, lean back onto your elbows. You can move your chest, your hips around. Take the whole setup to the right. So now your left foot is what comes stepping to the ground. And so again, from this place, you could come, to straight arms. You can come down to your elbows, maybe both. And eventually, let's come back upright within the figure 4 setup. You can walk your hands a little closer. It's okay if your bottom foot needs to come further forward. Your left hand can weave through, underneath and through. Right hand comes to the outside. So then you can lace the fingers and bring the pressure of your hand against your right shin, knee area. And then pull and sit taller to just see what comes. Good, and then let go. Let the bottom right leg extend, and that left foot can stamp over the right leg. And I'm going to take my right elbow and hug the left knee, and then sit up tall, and maybe use the floor with the left hand. And try to get the breath all the way through the ribs and the whole torso. And then release. Shake your legs out. And then for a moment, lie down on your back. So after that whole intro seated figure 4 sequence, take a moment for a body scan. So noticing your heels. And if you need to make an adjustment, you can just take your feet, flex them, just kind of wiggle your heels further out and connect to your lower back and then your head until you feel like you're a little more settled into the ground. You could even imagine that you're on the actual ground. Then let your feet relax. Arms relax as much as you can. Let's just take a minute or two here. You could bring your attention to your feet again. And then slowly work your way up the legs. Just in your mind, noticing how your legs are feeling today. And then perhaps noticing your pelvis, both sides of your hip. Front and back of the body, your torso, spine, stomach, chest. Ribs up into your shoulders. And then perhaps you might simultaneously scan your arms. from your fingertips, moving back up the arms if you haven't already, noticing now your neck, upper back and neck. Taking a deep breath there, just to acknowledge what you might be carrying there. Finally, your face, head, the brain, and so I invite you, if this is feeling really good, just to lay here after that opening. I invite you to stay longer. If you need to, you can tune out what's coming next and join back in whenever it feels comfortable to you. If you are ready for some movement, then start with your wrists coming up off the floor. You might take some circles with your wrists, and at the same time, your ankles and your feet can also start that movement. I have the heater plugged in like a electric radiator. So if you hear a noise, that's what it is. And it's also why I'm able to not wear any socks at the moment. Otherwise, I'd be wearing socks and maybe a hat. It's quite cold today and tonight. Whatever you need to do to stay cozy, please do that. All right, so I'm going to now suggest coming up to your table pose. So however you would like to slowly move onto hands and knees. I love just beginning table through an exploration of arm raises and hip sways. Okay, so I'm going to let my hands walk around and my knees walk around until I feel like there's a spot today that feels the most steady. And then eventually you could try taking your right arm out to the right and really slowly lifting it up. Maybe pausing with the palm facing out. And then letting your breath inform the release. Doesn't have to be on the exhale, but it might be. And then go to the other side. Left arm can float up nice and slow. And then eventually release back down. Next, I'm going to take the right arm and take a swimming circle. So the arm comes back, then palm opens all the way around. And if that felt good to do one of those, go ahead and go for it again. My hips are moving with my arm. And then go to the left side. So I'm taking these really slow because that's allowing some more processing of what senses I'm feeling, emotions, all the things, physical sensations. From here, I'm going to take my left leg straight back behind, and then I'm going to bend and straighten that leg a few times. And so you might just notice how you're holding yourself, if you're rocking a little bit back and forth, if you tend to drop your chest down or around. Nothing is good or bad there, it's just noticing what you do. And then perhaps the last thing you do is reach out bird dog. So left leg stays straight back, right arm forward, just for one moment, and then let go. And then sway those hips out. Walk your hands now to your knees. If you like, you can stand up on your knees, sweep the arms up. One just full breath in and out at your own pace. Back down, and now we're going to take the right leg back. And I'm going to do the same pulsing of the leg. So the knee is bending and straightening. Leg is bending and straightening. It might be more challenging to hold yourself on one side than the other. Those are things to just be mindful of. Nothing to fix, just to notice. Left arm forward, right leg back. Bird dog, and release. Good, sway those hips. And child's pose. Child's pose is not always a resting pose for folks, so make sure that you check in with what you need. You could be up with your hips up and your elbows down, head down. You could be sitting all the way back with a block or a blanket roll between your hips and your heels, and then dropping down. So many versions of child's pose. But I would love for you to settle in for a moment. While you're resting here, I have this book by a woman named Alexandra L. Gentle Reminders for Healing, Courage, and Self-Love. It's called After the Rain. And I just opened to this section, this short little snippet. She wrote, "I can lean deep into my existence by deciding to breathe and be in the present moment. I am deserving of my time, company, and energy." I wanted to share that because these 2 years have been, it's been hard to do that. It's been hard to come back to the present moment sometimes when we've been with ourselves so much and having to take in so much. So sometimes that makes it even more complicated to give yourself the space to just be and breathe. So I'm hoping that with this series, we can try to find that space again within ourselves and know that other people are also working on that. When you are ready, again, feel free to linger in any shape that you need. When you're ready, I'm going to suggest coming back up to table. And then move through some spinal flexion and extension. Cat-cow. That's what it is. Cow and cat. Back and forth. You could change the distance of your hands. You could be up on your fists. You could have your toes curled under. And then if you would like a full downward facing dog, I'm going to move there next. Just giving your lower legs, your heels, ankles, torso, shoulders, everything a moment. And you might give yourself some movement within your down dog. As a way to eventually find stillness and find that present moment. And if it doesn't come, that's okay. Maybe you need to just keep moving, pulsing in your down dog today. From here, you can drop down to your knees and then slide down to your stomach if possible. If that is not something for you tonight, then you might just stay up on your knees, knees wide and elbows down, head down. If you can come all the way prone onto your stomach, your hips, then you might set up in a Sphinx pose with your elbows more or less under your shoulders, and then either outer part of the hand pressing down or palm pressing down. Lots of options there for you to try. You could bring hands together. And then see if you can fluctuate between an anchoring of the body, pressing firm, knees, elbows, feet, and a release. Letting your shoulders kind of slump and maybe shaking it out. Same with your hips. And then back to the anchoring. And the release. Okay, from here, slide your hands one at a time closer to you so you can press back up to your knees. And then if you're able to walk your hands closer to your knees and stand up on your knees again, sweeping the arms up. Try that for a moment. Okay. Now we're going to come up to stand for a moment, just for a little shakeout. So use the wall, use anything you need to help you come up carefully. And I'm just going to give my ankles and legs a little shake, a little moment. Same with arms. And then take your mountain pose. So I'm going to have my feet more or less under my hips. Press firm down into the ground. See if I can bring my head a little bit back in space, like you're trying to press it up against the wall. And then let your arms shake out from there. We're going to take a half sun salutation. So we're just going to sweep the arms up. And then as you are prepared to fold forward, you're going to hinge at the hips, bend your knees. Use your breath to inform the shape. So that might mean bending your knees even more, letting your arms dangle, or letting your elbows rest on your thighs. And then taking hands to shins, straightening just the arms up. And then we're sliding back down the legs. Pressing feet to the ground, come rolling up slowly. So your chin is the last thing to lift. And then let's try that one more time. So just going really slowly. I'll turn to the side this time. Anchoring through the legs, arms might lift up. Whenever you're ready, it could be an inhale or an exhale. You can hinge forward and fold to let go. So give yourself a moment in the fold to shake your head, figure out what to do with your arms. Then your halfway lift, fingertips to shins, or some length, some extension, and then sliding back down, release. Press feet to the ground, come rolling back up really slowly. Okay. Then I'm going to suggest swinging the arms like this, so that one arm crosses in front of the other. Once you've gotten into a rhythm with it, see if you can just count to 10. Good. Now we're going to do one arm at a time. Swim some backstroke with the right arm. Reverse it. Other arm. So you could always do this sort of thing to music. You don't always have to count it. All right, shake it out. Last little thing here. I'm going to suggest a little neck, upper shoulder moment. So I'm going to take my left hand across my head to my right ear. And then if you have a pocket, so I have these sweatpants on that have a pocket, I'm going to put my thumb into it, my right thumb into it. And so simultaneously pull gently on your right ear with your left hand while you push your thumb down into your pocket. If you don't have a pocket, you could just try scrunching up your pants or your shirt and pull down a little bit. Or some other creative thing that you might try. After you've given yourself a present moment in that shape, then go ahead and release to switch sides. So you might find your left thumb sliding into your pocket or holding your pants. And then gently nudging your head to the side. Okay, go ahead and release. before we lie down for our final unwind moments, I'm going to take a lunge on each side. If you know that your body doesn't want to do a lunge, come right to the lying down part. If you would like to try a lunge, you want to make space to be able to step back behind you. I'm going to hinge forward at the hips and then take fingertips to the ground to step left leg back. So I'm staying in a runner's lunge for a moment and just taking my time to get set up within it. So that might mean a little maneuvering of the back foot and the front knee. So you could stay right here, but if you would like, for some reason I'm thinking of swimming, I don't know why, but now we're gonna do the butterfly stroke if you'd like, to come up to a high lunge. So to do that, I'm gonna sweep the arms back, swim it through the air and forward. And if you want, you could even come forward and back up. So really slow and steady. I'm just going to do 2 and then come down. Build a little momentum to step the back foot forward. When ready, other foot comes back. Take your time to maneuver this side. Again, you could stay put and breathe, or you could swim up through the backstroke, or sorry, butterfly. 2 times. And then release to your knees. All right, come lay all the way down on your back. Okay, so this is the moment now that you might want to start to make sure that you have things around you for your Shavasana eventually coming up here. We're going to take a moment in a reclined twist as an option, but you could also just start to set up your full final resting pose if that's what you need. I'm going to turn my lights down a little bit. If you want to turn your lights down, that could be helpful. So for a reclined twist, there's a lot of different ways you could actually get into it from lying down. But today I'm going to suggest bringing the left knee up into the air first. Your hands could be anywhere. Sometimes I like to hold my ribs and then just take the left leg up into the air for a moment and do a couple of ankle circles, checking in with the lower part of the leg, all the way, that line of energy down to the hip or up to the hip, however you want to think of it. And then bend your left knee so now your left heel is dropping in toward your seat. From there, I'm going to take my right arm back behind and start to cross the left knee over to the right. So for me, my left knee stays up in the air for a little bit. It doesn't drop all the way to the floor. And I like to give that space to feel the diagonal line and the opening through my torso. So I often find myself shifting my right shoulder out from under, using my right elbow to help get to that space. And then just letting both arms settle from there. So if you have props, you could stack something underneath that left knee that's floating, or maybe your knee touches the floor. And just adjust your head. Invite in an attentive breath. So maybe you're noticing a lot of physical sensation, maybe also a lot of mental stimulation. For me, it's often both in a pose like this and shape like this. And so the practice then becomes the observation of that. And the letting go of all of it, as much as you're able, with compassion to yourself. So to come out of this twist, you might bring your elbows a little closer to you so your hands float up in the air, elbows press down into the ground to help stabilize and float the left knee back. Back of your pelvis hits the floor. And then maybe both knees bend so your feet can press to the ground, lift your hips up, almost like a small bridge pose, and readjust. So sometimes I like to do that a couple of times. A gentle bridge, pressing feet down, lifting up, and release. Okay, and then left leg can extend down the mat, right knee might come in. I'm going to hold my ribs again to try to invite the breath to come out and expand. And then move your right ankle around. Noticing this leg, this side of the hip, bend the knee, let the heel kind of fall in when it's ready, and then begin that transition. I'm going to take my left arm back behind my head, and then let the right knee cross over, nice and slow, to where my body then stops with it, and the knee kind of hangs out in space. And then wiggle the left shoulder out from under. You can press your left elbow down to help you adjust there. And then the arms can find their spot. Maybe rock your head a little bit. until you find you can observe and breathe with attention. So sometimes it's in these quiet moments when the person leading the practice isn't speaking, there's no music or anything. Sometimes those are the moments where you are able to observe the discomfort, the mental stimulation, the physical sensation. Let it be what it is. And see if you can provide some more compassion to yourself. And eventually, using tender care and using your breath, you can start to transition out of this. Maybe your elbows come back down against the ground so you can press the floor to help you shift your hips back. And then again, both knees could bend, both feet could press into the floor to lift to a gentle bridge and back down. You can do that a couple of times. And then rest fully. Shavasana fully. So if you're at home and if you have props, you could set yourself up with things underneath your body, on top of your body, blanket, a weighted blanket. Bolsters, pillows. And let's just spend a few minutes here. Also, since you're at home, it might be really nice if you want to put your legs up on a chair, put your legs up over your couch or your bed. Continue to observe and hold yourself with gentle, open-minded, loving kindness. I often like to have my hands on my stomach. If I'm feeling that need for such care. You know, sometimes if you're really exhausted, the arms might float back behind you, and that's super necessary. And other times you might want that attention with the hands kind of laced or clasped at your stomach to feel that deep connection to each breath. Just a reminder to be more present, to be here. And so with that, I want to begin the process of ending this practice. If some of you are super cozy and in it, I sure hope that you'll continue to stay and you don't have to get up. The Zoom will end. The recording will end. If you have to move on with your night, please move carefully and gently as you transition up from your Shavasana. And I thank you all for joining me. I hope that I'm just gonna keep letting each week inform what comes for what I want to share. I hope you enjoyed this one. You know, there were moments that maybe didn't feel super unwind, but it just was something that I've been trying, needing these little pockets of getting in places to then be able to release. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Jen.